Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, from race to recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Kenny, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Tom. How are you?
I'm fantastic as well. We have a wonderful guest. I would like to welcome Karelle Laurent to the show today. Thank you for joining us. She is a nutritional therapist that specializes in integrative sports nutrition and works with the Institute. This is a long name here, Institute for Optimum Nutrition and Center for Integrative Sports Nutrition in London, currently residing in Portugal, originally from France, and has been everywhere else in between. So we're really excited to have you on. Welcome, Karelle. This is wonderful. We
welcome.
met you through Leo. So Leo Silva is one of our triathletes, journey athletes, and Karelle's working with Leo on his journey, and he connected. It was nice enough to connect us, and Karelle's nice enough to join us to talk about all things nutrition and sports and endurance. And you're also a triathlete as well, right?
Yes.
Aha. Okay, we've got that as well. So tell us about yourself. Welcome, and tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks, Kenny, for having me on the podcast. It's so lovely to be with you today. Yes, well, I think you've got it all right. So yes, I am French. I left France. We left France with my husband about 25 years ago. And we lived in the UK, we lived in Australia, we lived in Singapore, and we now live in Portugal. My husband is French-Portuguese, and we absolutely love Portugal. The south of Portugal, the Algarve, is absolutely beautiful, best place to cycle. We'll come back to that.
Yes.
And then on the way, yes, I used to be working in fashion industry. And shortly after my second child, he was suffering from a lot of allergies, ear infection. I was burning out as well because my husband was traveling a lot, and it was just a lot going on. And thought to myself, I just need to, I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and he's telling me what I need to do, and I'm quite knowledgeable, but I'm kind of taking it on board, but I don't have, it doesn't come from me, as I don't have the knowledge enough to say yes or to say no. So I thought, this is just not right. I can't do this. I need to learn more. So I've started looking at nutrition. I wanted to be a doctor growing up, but then I thought, can't be a doctor. This is not good for me. I'm not so good at school. So I came back into really trying to, satisfy my learning journey into nutrition, into well-being, into health, but also being able to educate my children about their future, their lives. And it's a really important part of our life, right? The well-being, health, longevity. Now we talk a lot about longevity. We don't start working on longevity when we are 65 years old. We're probably very lucky if it's said. So you need to start earlier. So one thing led to another. I signed up into an online school, so the Institute for Optimum Nutrition. I looked so much, but it was really the good space for me to be able to do my own research and have my own opinion. It wasn't a textbook type of school where we say to you, this is what people need to have for breakfast, this is what people need to eat. It was very much like, well, do you think people need to be vegan, or do you think people need to be omnivore? And you need to now write an essay and find some research and find your opinion, and you need to prove your point on both. So I really was quite fascinating with that aspect. However, I still had on the side, I've grown up in a household where sports was really important. Not in a competitive level, but my dad was very, very active. And we were always doing a lot of that. In the summer, when I was a little girl, we would go on holiday in Chamonix, for example, and walk up the mountain, while all my friends would go to the beach. And I would always say to my dad, what have I done wrong?
The torture.
And in the winter, we go back to the same place and we ski down. I was like, that's missing information here. And so he was always really active. However, I must say I'm joking and I always tease him about that. But there was always horse riding, not just going horse riding, but going several days horse riding. Or we did car racing. I actually grew up being my dad's co-pilot as a
Nice.
car
Look at
racer.
that.
There you go.
So yeah, it was amazing. It was so always sports was important, but I've never been, I would say, still not a top age grouper. But I love sports, and it's really part of me. So the nutrition, the sports, and all my friends were triathletes. It's kind of runs in the water in Singapore. And someone said to me, you know, it'd be great if you actually could be a nutritionist for us triathletes, because when something's wrong and we go to the doctor, automatically, even if it's not related to that, they say you need to stop training. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll find about it. I'll think about it. So when I finished my course, my diploma, then I remember also during the diploma, one of the tutors said, oh, you know, you work with weight loss, you work with oncology, you work with all of this, but the one you should not work with is triathlete. And I was like, really? Why?
Got a point.
It's so knowledgeable. And I was like, yeah, that's really fun actually, because you actually, my consultation, and I compare to, I'm in mentorship program, is my consultation. I feel like I level up to the people that I speak with. They have done their research. They know what they're talking about. They would still have questions and they want to dig more, but it just kind of resonates to them. So and I love that, because I love the fact that I still give them information and they're still learning, even though if they already have done lots of research and they're already very knowledgeable and interested about their health, right? So yeah, so it was definitely the population I wanted to work with.
So is it because triathletes, they just feel like they know what they're doing anyway, so they'll challenge you on stuff, or is it more they're hard-headed?
Sometimes it's a good question. Sometimes people come and they're like, okay, you know, Karelle, I know about this, I've done some research, but what do you think about that?
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, okay, do you know that?
Yeah.
So
So you were an active person prior, right? Like you said, you were doing a lot of activities, co-race car driver. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
it was
So
amazing.
I'm sorry, I'm just listening to your background. It's like, I'm really active in sports. I do nutrition. I did fashion, and I'm like, my gosh, it's like,
I wasn't a top model. I don't get me wrong. I'm very
It
sure.
doesn't matter. It doesn't
so
matter.
when you had a preconceived notion of nutrition before you walked into the courses, once you've gotten out, were you surprised at sort of the difference between what you did, or did you intrinsically think you got it? Now you just, it's validated, if you will.
It's a really good question. I definitely learned a lot. So in terms of food particularly, I understood more the impact on the body system. I understood more also how the body works. And I think long-term, the big picture, and that was it. So the reason why also I picked this particular school is we work on the functional medicine. I don't know if you've heard about functional medicine yet.
Yep.
Mark Heyman and all of this. And that's really interesting because, for example, if you take the example of an athlete, I would have an athlete comes and see me and it's like, oh, you know, Karelle, oh, I always have injury, but that's always me. I always have, you know, an injury in my calf or it's my foot, and I'm like, hold on a minute, it's inflammation, right? So that's not localized. So if you have an injury, okay, you train, so that's just going to push it a little bit to the extreme, but there is an inflammation in the gut, and that's what functional medicine is incredible about. And that's maybe my biggest takeaway of this school was really to be able to take that step back and investigating the big picture and be like, you know, our body is not just, you don't have a border between your legs and the rest of the body. So if you have an inflammation, it's not just localized, it's everywhere. So why? So why do we have an inflammation? It may not be because you've been running, but maybe there's something happening with your gut. Maybe it's an influence of, where you live, your environment, maybe the food you've been eating, maybe, some prior medication you've been taking. And that's really the part when I work with clients where it's really interesting. And the light bulb moment of, you have habits that you will have. And sometimes I explain something to a client and I can see the, is that why this is happening? And it's a light bulb moment where they realize what's going on. And I've had it in the past in my journey. And that's where you're making a difference, right? Even for
yeah. And I think the biggest issue, I'd say issue is not the right word, but essentially it's different for everyone. So there is the inflammation that you're having is caused by something different from the inflammation that I'm having or Kenny's having. It's like it's going on there. And I think part of the journey is finding what that trigger is for you and then trying to adjust for that. Now, how do you deal with athletes that come in, and you work with non-athletes as well as athletes? I'm assuming that too. So when you're
we don't care about the non-athletes. So
yeah. Well, everybody's an athlete, right? We feel everyone's an athlete.
Everyone's an athlete.
The normal people, you mean?
Normal people, yeah. Normal people. So when they come in, and so you identify something, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a food that they're eating, all of that. Do you get people that are resistant to change? It's like, what if they really like that food or something that's triggering this, and you figured out that that's what it is? How do you walk them through that realization of like, you're gonna have to change a habit to be healthier, and that habit you really love?
Yeah, and you're right. And I think, as we age, we don't like change. I don't like change too much. It's also difficult, but you would have different kind of type of people as well. There's people who are scared of change and it creates anxiety, and you need to be really well aware of that. And usually I would realize that in the initial session, in the process, and then you just go a little bit more, you go with caution in the way you will introduce change habits. So if you work with non-athletes, usually, and at school they would say, oh, you do only a couple of change at a time because it's hard for people to implement change. But working with athletes, if I do a couple of change, they would be like, okay, so can we move on?
Yeah. Let's go.
Again, it's a very different population. So you really need to work with the type of person that you have. And sometimes it's a change in between. It's maybe, I'm going to take an example of someone who drinks soda, for example, and drinks maybe 3 or 4 soda a day. And obviously, in the best of the world, we don't drink soda at all. But that's not the realistic approach for someone who is going to be drinking maybe 4 soda a day. So then you would start into, how is your sleep? Oh, yeah, it's good, but it's not. Okay. So, and then you have a couple of more ideas and suggestions, maybe cravings, maybe afternoon a bit more, lack of energy. Then I would be like, okay, how about we just change one? And then another one. So you go to your own rhythm, and usually to change the habits, it just happens. And when you do the follow-up session, you're like, oh, how do you go? Oh, I don't drink soda anymore. Excuse me? Yeah, it's all good, actually it felt, it's not even a problem. It was a problem. We talked about it for 40 minutes. So we forget. You forget how, you've done something for several years and you suddenly stop doing it and you're like, oh, okay. But there is sometimes things that I go a lot into. I'm quite realistic of the way we live. I could be French as well, but I'm not being French or being a nutritionist. I don't live in a bubble of we eat kale for dinner every day. Very sick of. I've got kids; they want to eat pizza. This is just a normal world. So I'm going into someone's life and help them. So tell me, what do you have around you? What are your surroundings? What do you like? What don't you like? And then we just make suggestions like this. It's not just me, but you would make a suggestion. And it's a conversation, and it's a really nice exchange. And sometimes a suggestion comes from the clients, and that's what's beautiful, because it's easier to implement.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that
Sure.
takes time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I find food is a fascinating kind of challenge,
Like
right?
religion.
Well, actually, yeah, because if it's just fuel, it would be one thing, right? If we just use it as like drinking water. But food is tied to family, it's tied to society, it's tied to pleasure. We
Yeah.
eat at a funeral, we eat at a wedding, we eat at, birthday parties, we eat at pool parties, or we just, eat for breakfast. So it's tied to so many societal things. That I think it's fascinating. We can't just simply say, well, just don't eat that or don't eat that. For example, to your point, you may want someone to eat more uh, nutritious food, but that maybe their spouse and their kids are eating less, pizzas and all that. So trying to incorporate a healthy diet in a world where none of that is supported, I guess, because they want to eat their food. How do you handle that kind of societal, or do you see that societal sort of pressure, and how do you
Yeah.
navigate that?
And culturally, because I work with clients in different parts of the world,
That's a good
culture
point.
has translates very differently.
Mhm.
In Asia or in Middle East or in Europe, it's so different. So
Mhm.
I'm really fortunate that, because I have been traveling a lot for living
Yeah.
or just traveling for leisure, I
Yeah.
know a little bit, and I've got a really good perception on culturally how food is important into a society,
Yeah.
and that is a valuable point for me to be able to translate that in a consultation and understand that, living in the US or living in New York, you have a lot more temptation than I would have living in the Algarve, because
Mhm.
you walk down the street, the smell. I remember when I lived in the UK, my mum would say to me, "It's incredible. I know where I am. I don't need to open the eyes. It smells cinnamon everywhere." But it's true, you don't realize that.
Yeah.
And the blue zone, have you heard about the blue zone with
Yes.
that Whitner, right? And he talks a lot about that in his book. I remember that was really relevant to me, because the environment you are in is going to be the recipe for success or no, or make life so much harder for you
Yep.
in terms of being able to make the change you want. Because sometimes wanting to make the change is not enough. The
Mhm.
willpower is a great tool, but it's not enough to be able to make those changes, because there's so many more barriers,
Mhm.
right? So we've just got to realize the environment. So yeah, it's food is, but you're right, food is interlinked to some, and emotionally as well.
Exactly.
Emotionally, food is just a
Yeah.
huge factor. Um,
Yeah. It's just an amazing challenge I have always seen, even me, and I'm guilty of it. We may have friends that come over that are vegan, and I'm not a vegan. I like my meat,
yeah,
and, having to cook for purely vegan sometimes is difficult for me. It's like, or if they order, it's always, and I've got to be a lot more supportive, right? Or when they order, can you have it with this? And does it come with this? Does it come with that? I'm like, just order, right? But, you have to be a little bit more patient on that. Um,
yeah, it's different, because it's more difficult for you because you're not used to it.
yeah, exactly.
It would be, imagine if you suddenly, it would be very difficult for you to implement that, because it's change. Any changes are
Yeah.
going to be traumatic in some extent, right?
Yeah.
So, but for them, it's not a problem, because they're used to that. So they would
Yeah.
be like, "Yeah, fine, just get me some vegetables and some this." I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. For
yeah.
me, it would be difficult. So when people come to you, do they come to you? Is it sort of is there a theme? It's like, I'm having a sleep problem, or I'm having a GI problem, or I'm having a nutrition problem, or a hydration problem.
Yeah.
When do you get the call?
So interesting. So I actually, it's interesting, because I often have, so I do discovery call. You have a free 15 discovery call. I'll post the link later. I'll send you the
Uh,
link. And I often have, the wording is often going to be, looking for support. I heard about you from this or this, and looking for support because I have a race, so a performance goal. And
Okay.
then when we start talking, I would say 1 times out of 2, that goal becomes secondary. And then as we start talking, even discovery call, it will be like other goal, a more important goal to that client. It could be, I'm trying to lose weight, but Karelle, I'm trying so hard and it's not working. I don't understand. I'm careful is what I eat. I train a lot. I've been training for years. I can't lose weight. There's that. Or it could be something like, I never know what to eat. I do this, but it's a little bit like I'm insecure in what I'm doing. And that's a really important point. I often have that. I just need you to tell me, am I doing this right? Should I have this for breakfast? Should I be fasting? Should I not be fasting? Should I be vegan? Should I not be vegan?
Yeah.
And that's a really big, often, it's a big question because, and it's something you mentioned in your email, Tom, is how do people would relate into, what you hear on social media. And that's, I think, it creates a lot of insecurity amongst ourselves, amongst everyone, because you suddenly think like, oh, should I be doing that? But they're doing that, so should I be? And I try to take that off, that pressure off. So we look at someone's habits and then and then it becomes very clear. So then they have the empower people to be like, yeah, actually what you were doing was right. Or the other way around. Or someone would come with a more personal health problematic. It could be GI issue, allergy, food intolerance. It could be, hormone changes as well. I work with women, and there's usually a big change. Your performance starts to peak, or you suddenly to drop, or you suddenly don't sleep well. Or even men and women are suddenly saying, I can't reach I just can't reach my target that my coach is giving me. I'm tired. I don't know what's going on. So, but when they are at that moment, they are already able to, to know that it's a link with the food, because sometimes they don't make that link. So when they already have knowledge there. So it's really interesting. And lately I've had, I would say in the last couple of years, I've had a few athletes or even adults who has been recently diagnosed with ADHD. And that's really interesting. So I'm doing a lot more training on neurodiversity, the impact.
Interesting.
I think it's really fascinating to see how that also creates a huge driver in the relationship we have with food, with how we should be and how, what we should be eating. So that's really, really interesting as well.
That's fascinating, because I wouldn't have even guessed that there'd be a link to food with that. And I should know that, right? We should know that the food links to just about to everything. It does to everything. So yeah, I wouldn't have thought ADHD and linking that to food and being able to help you cope a little bit with better food choices and timing and all of that. I'm fascinated to learn more about that.
Yeah, I think it's because we identify ADHD as the old idea of you have a child who has hyperactivity, or that naughty child has ADHD. But we know it's so much more than that now. We've learned so much more. And when adults find out, it's sometimes, because they have a hard time to organize themselves. So they have the hard time to follow instruction. And it could be following a plan, or it could be just thinking about, cooking, or it could be about so many more aspects. And then as such, the food, it's also the texture. It's also maybe focusing too much on not eating carbs at all, or eating too much carbs, or, so then we go to the extreme as well. And that's where it's not even one example. And that's why it's really fascinating to learn more, because we know that it's just neurodiversity is going to be a million different facets and a million different translation for people. So that's why it's so it's fascinating discoveries coming up. So really interesting to learn more on that.
Nice.
Yeah.
It seems like, there's a a diet a week that occurs, right? And you mentioned that people go online. It seems like, okay, I'm going to be a carnivore now, or and you'll get quick, results, or I'm going to be totally vegan, or I've decided that, this particular diet, I always thought, the Mediterranean diet seemed to be the nice combination of both. Is there um, do you see more or less of a particular kind that's popping up lately, or is
Oh,
it,
you're right,
or it's all
though.
over the board?
I think it's the influence of all of this, and it's so hard because I even try myself on social media to try to not go into this of telling people what to do,
Yeah.
and because I think it just is that window you see this, but then
Yep.
it's so much harder to show the rest of it. Yes, vegan diet, all of them are going to be great on a certain extent, and they have all of them
Mhm.
study that supports them, but are they the right approach for you? Are they the
Yeah.
right approach for me at that moment of your life? So, being vegan is all great, but is it the right moment to do this?
That's
I
a
used
good
to be,
point. I
yes,
like what you're saying when you could have a diet when you were 30, but maybe not the diet when you're 50. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
because you have a different way of living.
Yeah.
In a personal example, I used to be vegetarian for many, many years. And being
Mhm.
into perimenopause, I realized I was like, no, actually, that doesn't work with me
That's it.
anymore.
Mhm.
It just doesn't. I
Yeah.
need to have a better support, and I need to have more protein intake. And it's a challenge. I'm telling you, it
Mhm.
is a challenge. But I'm lucky I live in a place in the world where I have access to really good quality and meat.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean eating you could be fasted in your off season. So often clients would say, oh, but I'm on a fasting diet. Yes, but when you're training for a full Ironman, perhaps could we delay the fasting to your off when you
Yeah.
eat a lot for Christmas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Eat, eat, eat. If you're training for
Is
big, ugly
Exactly.
races, eat. Yeah.
Right. It's getting the right timing. So yes, there's
Yeah.
going to be hundreds and thousands of studies supporting every type of
Yeah.
diet. And I'm not going to say they're not good. They just have a moment, a time, and a timing, and they would be
Sure.
personalized.
Yeah. And we're all looking for the quick, easy answer, right? It's just do this. And my favorite term is game changer. This was a game changer for me. I ate this protein powder and it was a game changer. And it's just like there is no simple one pill answer. There is no magical thing that you just do this and everything is perfect. It's a mixture of things. So
And that's right. And I think it's often a takeaway as well that, I would also have say a client saying, okay, so what is the supplement I need to take? But just tell me, I will take it.
yeah,
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like this. And I think for years, some clients would say, I used to get away with just eating whatever I want. But then there's a
Yeah.
moment where I realized I had to actually work on eating the right food. And it doesn't mean having a perfect diet. It's just, nourishing your body around your training, nourishing your body when you are increasing the intensity of your training, ramping up for
Mhm.
a race. It just simply means that it just, it's watering a plant that you're trying to grow in the desert. If you don't water it, it's gonna die.
There you go.
yeah.
I don't think you can talk about nutrition and sort of supplements unless you talk about GLP-1s, right? And the rise of those. Is that
Yeah.
is that a kind of a US centric sort of uh uh fervent pitch in which everyone's trying to get on GLPs to easily lose weight, or do you see that globally? Is is the impact more US centric, or is it less, or is it?
No, I think it's, yeah, I see it here in yoga.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's global
Okay.
because yeah, it's global. I won't say I think it's also, you hear a lot more from the US,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's a global thing.
Yeah.
I don't have it so much. I don't have so many clients requesting or talking about it yet.
Yeah.
I had one a couple of years ago, but it's not something that comes up because I think I think we speak a lot about taking the time. Just as,
Okay.
you know, I really always try to reinforce the fact that you wouldn't start running a marathon from day one, right? You don't walk out of the door running a marathon. You know,
Yeah.
it's there. Wow,
Yeah.
maybe one guy out of
There's a few.
And they're usually crazy, right? So
one lucky one.
yeah.
But you got to put in the work, and the work
Yeah.
is going to be the foundation.
Yeah.
Now, I think with this type of medication, it has a purpose for a population. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's wrong,
Yeah.
but just to confirm that we're talking about using it for people that could just, who are
Yeah.
having lower BMI, right?
Yeah.
So when people do require, I think it's amazing that that the science have provided an opportunity for them to
Yeah.
be able to reduce their markers of, you know, and improve longevity on so many aspects.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. Just, you know, again, if that's something that you want or something that you need, you got to wrap a habit around it, because you're not just going to be an injectable and then eat Doritos and eat burritos and eat, you know, and continue to be sedentary and expect, you know, some miracle. I mean, there's got to be a habit. If it helps you get to a habit change, awesome. In other words, if you get more confident or you feel like you can walk more, that's great. But yeah, anyway, I had to ask about that just because, you know,
Right.
it's prevalent all over the place, right?
It is, and I've been listening to a couple of podcasts in the last couple of weeks on that topic, because I thought it was really interesting actually to
Yep.
know more. And you're right. I think if it can help someone to gain a better quality of life, by all means, I think it's just ultimately we need to have more positive outcome
Sure.
for
Yeah.
population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of other differences between Europe and the rest of the world and the US market when it comes to food? I've talked to people that I've met through the years that were always say they came from Brazil, or they came from someone else, and they say they went and got vegetables or they got fruit and it just didn't have the same flavor. It didn't have the same. So there's a difference in our farming product that we deliver and our food processing and manufacturing. How big a difference is that? I mean, I've noticed it when I've traveled to Europe a couple of times where the food just, I don't know, maybe it was because I was there, it just tasted better, but there was more flavor to certain things in regards to here. So what other differences do you see?
I think it's farm to table. It's that ratio, right? But I'm sure in the US, if you are in an area where you have access to farmers, small production, and you will have amazing quality of food. But I think it's more, rather than saying geographically, I think it's more down to how the access we have and where we're purchasing our product and our produce. Asia was particularly difficult because Singapore, being a small city, country slash city,
Island.
don't have a lot of land. So everything is imported. Because it's imported, it spends a lot of time in those freezing conditions to be transported, right? So tomato have no taste. They're just a bit bland. Raspberry don't have much taste, but we had access to good meat from Australia, for example, so that was fine. But here in Portugal, raspberries are out of this world. They're just so delicious.
Yeah.
Because produce are coming from here, and they are also, you know, often remind clients to go seasonal, even if you are in a place where you would have, and we have this supermarket where you have everything. But look, where is this coming from? Where is this coming? Is it coming from? Because sometimes you would have bananas, even just bananas. Your bananas will come from the country locally, the country right next to you, or is it coming from the other side of the world? And if you pay attention, if you look, and you suddenly like, why would I get a banana that comes from being in Europe, New Zealand? Well, I can get a banana that comes from Madeira. Obviously, the banana coming from Madeira is sometimes the price, it's difficult to say if it's less expensive or more expensive. It's definitely going to have a better flavor. Definitely have a better flavor. It's just doing those little things that would be quite important. I would really recommend people to start doing that. And then you realize, oh, wow, the taste is different, right? Maybe go to the markets. There's only one day a week where there's a market, but you guys in the US, there's so many farmers markets.
We've
to your
found
point,
that
you
here.
you get seasonal stuff. You're supporting the local farmer. I mean, it's good all the way around, right? It's just rather than, the big corporate man that, like you said, we're getting stuff imported and then.
And it has a good taste. It's handy. Sometimes you have to go bike riding on a Saturday because your coach gave you a long ride and you can't go to the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in the middle of a race and I can look at it and go, where is this banana from? I know I'm doing an Ironman right now, but is this a local
do you have
banana?
a local banana?
I really, if you could, where are these M&Ms at exactly?
One of the reasons we landed here when my wife and I moved to Tennessee and to Franklin, Tennessee, was there was local farms to get our meats and eggs and everything. And I got to tell you, I have a hard time when we don't get to the farms to get the meats, to go to the grocery
100%.
store and get something, because it's just, even their top tier meats in the grocery stores just don't have the flavor, don't come anywhere close. And it's a little bit more expensive. So we change our budget, we change our buying habits, but the fish, getting it from places that don't ship it around the world to process it, to get it to you. And then the meats locally going to the farms has been just that was one of our big points of coming here.
Yes. I think it's wonderful, and to your point, you eat less because it's better quality. You just make the most of it, and I think once you start making that shift, for a lot of people, it's scary because they're like, oh, yeah, but it's so much more expensive. Yes, but actually, do you need to have meat 5 days a week? No, you could.
Or 12 ounces at one sitting. You can have. You can have 5 ounces.
One day chicken, one day beef, and then one day you have some fish, and then one day you have, some legumes, some beans and lentils, and it just, there's 7 days in a week, so there's plenty of opportunity to explore different food. But that could be level 7 in the.
We'll start small.
Start small. So, there you go. So switching gears a little bit, I had a colleague of mine, a buddy of mine who from the US that was racing in Nice for the World Championship. So you have folks that are traveling, internationally. What's your recommendation for those folks? Because diets are going to change. You're going to be on a plane for multiple hours. What do you generally recommend for folks that are doing an international race? How do you kind of help them get prepared?
Get prepared. Yeah, so it's really interesting question. Yeah, so it's just usually depending on how early they go. It's when they have a rental apartment, I always try to encourage clients, at least for the breakfast, is to be able to get, to plan when we work weeks leading to an event that's going to be internationally. Is we work on that breakfast weeks before that, but we work on that breakfast towards being ready for that race. So if you are in a hotel or if you are in an apartment, then you just go and get the food. Sometimes, I've lived in Asia. We used to go races in Indonesia, and there's nothing. Only thing you're going to find is a packet of crisps. So you go with you and you have your oats, you have your food, you bring everything because you need to have, and you sometimes don't want to drink the coffee because it's different coffee, how it can be really different. So it depends where you're going. Sometimes you're lucky enough, you go to the Park Hyatt or you go to the apartment, everything is like, can I have an egg? Or can I have a bowl of rice? So it's manageable, but it's just to anticipate, right? It's planning that. So we talk a lot about this. We talk a lot about the food we are using the days leading to a race, which go in line of the tapering and sometimes the dehydration that is coming from traveling. And I've got plenty of experience with that from traveling overseas. So I can relate and give really good advice on this. But there's also, anticipating a lot. And what I sometimes see, it's not necessarily because of the traveling, but it's because of the non-anticipation. And something happened, and it feels like the stress level is really high. So how can we plan so you are ready to face any type of situation, whatever? Sometimes it's related to the food or related to something that happens to the event, right? You've got a delayed luggage, or you've got. So actually, we talk a lot about that, because for me, it's really important, even if it's not directly linked only to the food, but it's the stress impact on the body. And we know how the stress response has an impact on the body. And, it's the whole part of visualization. Do you do a visualization before your race? You see yourself. What is going to happen if you have a puncture? Well, prepare that. Have a look at that. Do that, because I'm rubbish at changing diets. So my husband did that before my race last year. He sat me down he said, okay, tired, this, do it. And he put the food down. And no matter how I struggled, I took my time. He didn't tell. They said, right, 15 minutes. Imagine if you have a puncture, 15 minutes. I said, it's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing. So it's just talking about all of this and realizing that you're going to have something happening. You're going to lose your nutrition. It's possible that your suitcase with your gels are going to be delayed. Have you tested what's on the route? Do you know what's going to be on the race? We talk about all of this, and often it helps to prepare. And sometimes you have a plan B in your head. I work like this. I need to be able to see every type of, what could happen, what could go wrong. Not in a drama kind of way, but if I know what could go wrong, then I know I can be prepared for that.
Yeah, and I like that idea of actually looking ahead to where you're traveling to, what the traditional breakfasts are, what is that stuff, and if you could actually get some of that ahead of time to test it, try it. I love that, because I'm one of those people that over prepares. I'll do the research, I'll go through all of it, I'll see what it is. Yes, of that. Well, it's like, so there's plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and we just kind of navigate with whatever goes through there. There's no stress when it happens, because you just go, oh, we just moved to this plan. It just works.
And I think, I think that, the running joke is the fourth discipline is nutrition, right? When it comes to these races. And it's funny because we prepare for contingencies on running and everything else, but you will be brought down in a heartbeat if you're dehydrated or you miss a fuel, right? So you could be prepared on anything else. You could be the best cyclist you can be. You can have the fastest PRs on your run. And then if you skip a bottle, or if the food that's on the course doesn't sit well with you, a GI will take you down.
Even a very simple example, even for athletes who are experienced, and I've had that with COVID. I've had a couple of athletes that were very experienced. They've done Kona before COVID. They know exactly what they were taking. Their nutrition was nailed down. We always had this really nicely organized. And then I remember receiving a message from one of my clients, and he said to me, I don't know what's going on. I was sick like a dog. I just had this, and then it didn't work. What do you think is happening? And I said, well, COVID happened. It's 2 years happened. So you can't go from not hitting anything when you go on your leisurely ride or on the trainer to go back to your 90 grams per hour just because you've done it before. So we need to go back to slowly increasing back how we did the first time, right? Oh, I didn't think of that. And that, I see it a lot with experienced athletes who just gonna do a race every 6 months or a race a year because they're busy, and suddenly they go back, they prepare their bottle, and have you tested that? No, but I'll be fine. And no, because you need to get used to that. Again, taking back the marathons, not because you ran a marathon 10 years ago, you can run it next week.
That's a great analogy.
You've got to get back into some sort of a training to get back into it. And maybe it will be faster because you're fit and athletic. But maybe you just need to go back into a certain discipline of increasing.
That's such a great point. I mean, it clicks when you say it, right? You know, to your point, everyone thinks physically, well, I'm just going to go back and start my ramp and, you know, start here and be cool. And then you just eat the exact same thing, or you start eating at the same level that you did when you're, you know, 6 months into your training. Think, well, I'm just going to start horking down a lot of food because I'm starting to train now, and don't
Yeah.
ramp your nutrition. That's a great point.
It's training the gut. It's training the
Yeah.
gut
Training the gut.
to go along.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
And change product technology has changed. There's fabulous
Yeah.
products nowadays.
Oh, wow.
So you change product because you're not going to take the same thing that you used to take 6, 7 years ago. We now have very well formulated product out there, great flavors. So yeah, it's worth.
So about that, if you know, there's always a, you know, nothing new on race day, right? So if you're going to get a new pair of shorts or a new wetsuit, you want to try it X amount of weeks or months ahead of time, or new shoes. Is there a nutrition equivalent to that as well? Is there a cutoff time? Like, is it 2 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? Is it, you know, if you're going to try a new gel or try a new, you know, supplement for your water, what do you recommend? Is it?
Yeah, well, to do well, I would say, if we're talking about a full or a middle distance, I would say it's great to plan at least 6 to 8 weeks in advance.
Okay.
We have time, we have plenty of time to try different type of gel, different powders. So we do a really big exploration.
Okay.
And I never imposed a particular product on clients. I would always say, you should try this. I give them names of different brands, and they order, they try, and it needs to come from them. I like this texture. I don't like the neutral taste. I like having the strawberry taste. Or I don't like the strawberry taste. I want neutral. And then we put the plan together. I call them the draft of the race plan, but we put the plan together, and we get a little bit more of a picture of what you're going to take during the training session, during your long ride, during your run. And we try, sometimes you've got to change products because they certainly don't sell them on this particular store.
Yeah, or they change the formula. Yeah.
Or if something happened. But usually, we try not to. We try not to change. But I would say, again, I think in the last 2 years, the few big brand of products are so well formulated. It really reduced a lot more of the GI issue we used to have in the past.
Sure.
If you even regularly.
Even Ironman now changed out of Gatorade to a different.
Yeah, in the US. Yeah.
So
which is throwing everybody out.
Yeah, it's throwing everybody off,
absolutely
right?
losing their minds. You talk about not liking change. People are complaining about it when they haven't even tried it yet. They're just absolutely like, no, absolutely.
To be fair, I think it was a little bit of a miscommunication because they actually changed the way the message came across. Is they changed the nutrition for a hydration product. So it's almost, well, like, even my husband told me that, and I was like, but we're not talking about the same purpose here.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I think they didn't put the message out there properly, because we're talking about hydration. And I think for what the purpose of the hydration, that new product is fantastic to have it.
Yeah.
Because I had experience on so many races where there is no option for proper hydration in hot climate. So for that extent, I think it's marvelous. But that means that there's no nutrition anymore.
Yeah. Well, I found it interesting that people were talking about, they said they needed the calories, the carbohydrates that were in the Gatorade Endurance. And I'm doing the math and I'm going like, that is so minuscule. How much of that product are you drinking on the course that those tiny little calories, and I can't remember the grams, it was minuscule in the grand scheme of things. It's like, that should just be an addition to what you've got with you on your bike. But they're like complaining that was like, without those
make or break,
grams, that was their race.
Absolutely. In hydration, you need to have a little bit of glucose and some sodium. So it's around usually 15 grams of glucose for the absorption of the sodium. It works together, right? So I think that's why people got confused. that's not because they're low carbs, it's because the purpose is hydration.
Yes.
It's to transport the sodium to your
That's
cell.
amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
interesting.
and, you know, instead of freaking out, you know, educate yourself first. So about you said you're a triathlete. Do you have a race coming up this year? What is on your calendar?
So I've just done my race.
Oh,
and
nice.
it was not fabulous. So that was my sixth half marathon. It's just-
did you run out of calories? You ran out of calories, didn't you? You dehydrated yourself, didn't you?
So
Would that be the ironic thing?
that'd be funny. No, my nutrition was great. It
Perfect.
was good. That's always the thing that is actually quite
The one
good.
thing you get right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God I knew that. No, what happened is, so moving out of Asia, you swim, the water is so warm, it's always very hot. I do very well in hot climates. I won't say very well, but I do well in hot climate.
Yeah.
And moving to Europe has been a little bit of a challenging moment.
A little colder.
Especially with the water. So
Yeah.
a couple of races, 16 degrees. My first one, I kind of had a panic attacks in the swim thinking, what is going on? I didn't train enough. And then I realized it was the cold actually that did that.
Yeah.
And last year I was like, I'm done with the cold water. Now I'm going to look for a race. The only race that has a really nice warm lake was in Zurich. It's called Rapperswil Jonas. So I was like, hey guys, all my friends, let's go to Rapperswil Jonas. The lake is 20 degrees for the race in early June. So everyone signed up, except guess what? They had no spring. The lake was at 13 degrees.
Oh, wow.
That's cold.
And in US, I'm trying to figure out the US calculation on that. Just cold. That would be
It's
cold.
just cold.
Right?
It's just
So
cold.
30 degrees would be, you just make the calculation and just
Yeah,
break
it's just
it.
cold.
Yeah.
I actually wondered if I would be able to go in the water. I did. Ironman was good enough to shorten the swim. A lot of people were complaining, but I have to say, we're not all Swiss. And for the funny story, I actually grew up on the other side of the mountain, maybe about 2 hours drive from Zurich. And I'm like, no, not on the cold. But it was raining a little bit on the bike. It was a tiny bit slower than I was expecting. It was a very hilly bike course, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that. The run, I was in hypothermia. I could not finish. It was, I finished, but I was just thinking it was. And they had lovely little soup and they had Coke, and I just stopped up because. And it's a really interesting concept actually, because we, with a couple of friends, we're like, because it's cold, we need to increase our carbohydrates because you obviously need to warm up. And I did, but I think it was just the damage was done in the water.
Yeah, you started off way too cold and no
so
recovery.
I was disappointed. It was a very slow run, much slower than I was hoping to do, but so I'm going to digest this and then figure something out.
Be ready for the next one.
Find a warmer.
I have an interesting story about the water. I was in Northern California over the weekend, and the lake was 62, 63 degrees.
Yeah.
And when you tell that to a triathlete, right, you're like, okay, do I need booties? Do I need, you start asking, right? The last race I did, the full Ironman, it was 63 degrees and my feet were numb when I got out of the water, right?
Yeah.
So as a triathlete, you look at 62, 63 degrees. We went to a lake that has a park with a bunch of people, and there's kids splashing with their bathing suits on, and people are splashing around. And it's like they think that 62, 63 degrees was nothing, and we're over there freaking out like as triathletes going. And I have, we're going to be in the water for a long time, but it's just so funny how those guys treat it like a fun little vacation, and I'm like, that's crazy.
But you don't stay in the water at the same time.
Yeah, I know, but it was just funny.
In an upright, so I have a fabulous
I think about that.
coach here. Is great because the sea in Portugal is quite nice. It's not Hawaii, but you need to know where you're swimming, and it's quite knowledgeable, and actually is always give good tips on the way of swimming, etc. And but when you are flat, you don't have the same blood in the legs, so it's normal that you you don't have. Yeah, so and
because I don't want to feel wimpy that the wimpy people were putting on a bunch of neoprene and a bunch of kids are splashing around.
And well, you are, but anyway, that's
That's
a
true.
different story
That's true.
altogether.
Yeah.
Plus,
To be
plus your
fair,
body pulls all your
Yeah.
blood into your torso to keep your
Yeah.
heart warm and that. So it's going to pull from your extremities anyway. So
Yeah.
you're immediately going to get cold. But we routinely, when I was living in California, routinely summer water in the ocean, 65 degrees Fahrenheit. If it got up to 68 or 69, it was balmy. And then in the
Yeah.
winter times was down in the 47 degrees. And I think
Yeah, it's insane.
53 Fahrenheit was the coldest I swam in. And that was, yeah, I didn't appreciate that as much. That was,
Yeah.
that was
No,
it.
it's yeah.
Not as much fun.
Yeah. Not as much
Not
fun.
as much fun. So what about the cycling in Portugal? We mentioned this at the very beginning of the show. And like I've
Yeah.
been teasing my wife. I said someday when we retire, which we're never going to retire, we're constantly doing something.
Yeah.
That I wanted to like go to Spain or Europe and have like a triathlon camp, live there for a month and have camps.
I've got it for you.
So now I'm not looking at Spain anymore because Portugal sounds really fantastic. What is the cycling like there? What and how soon can we get there?
The Algarve, which is the south of Portugal, is beautiful. It's quite hilly, not crazy hilly. The hills will never be very, very long, but you can definitely have a good day on the bike and a challenging ride. Now, when I moved here 3 years ago, I've met, first of all, I was like, oh, am I going to be able to ride? I had a really strong group of girlfriends where I was riding with in Singapore. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be on my own. Who am I going to ride with? And I met this lovely lady. She's British. She's living here. She's called Fiona. And we really bonded together. She was doing some social rides. She used to be elite athlete. She doesn't like to talk about it, but she's pretty awesome. And now she's a tour guide in the Algarve. And we bonded really nicely together. Just always, we thought, wouldn't it be so nice to go on a cycling trip and you eat well and you spend a bit of time to look after yourself? And then we're like, oh, shall we do that? So we did. So we've done for the last 3 years. I think we've done 6 now. So we call that the Cycling Nutrition Wellness Retreat.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
It's so much fun. And you have couples coming. So we often have Canadian coming and etc. So any age. We usually, depending on how many, we keep it small. So it's quite small. We're not going to be 40. It's usually between, I would say, 5 to 15 people maximum. And usually around 8 or 10 in most cases. But we've had couples, and sometimes the ladies are coming on the electric bikes because they haven't been riding as much as the gentlemen, or sometimes ladies are coming with their girlfriends and they just smashing up the hills. But it's fabulous. It's a really good week. We are staying in this beautiful boutique hotel in the hills in the Algarve. So we're about 30 minutes from the airport, 30 minutes from the coast, where some clients might want to spend another couple of days on the beach and just relaxing and eating seafood. It's a farm-to-table boutique hotel, so all the produce that we are eating, they are actually getting from the farm, depending on where you're coming during the year. It's going to be lamb, it's going to be pumpkin, it's going to be really seasonal and fabulous food. The hotel is absolutely.
I want to go. Can I go? My gosh, this sounds like incredible. Like, let me get this straight. We get to ride all day, we get to eat incredible food, and then we get to, can we have a little glass of wine at the end? Okay, then I'm set. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
And do yoga, and there's massage.
Okay, never mind. I'm out.
No, it's not compulsory, but the yoga is incredible. Everyone comes.
Yeah, that's fun.
Nice.
Yeah, so I highly recommend to come and spend a week in Portugal. And the good news is next year we also had a crazy conversation, and we did a gravel week together last year, and we were like, oh, should we just do gravel? Okay, next week we're doing one cycling, nutrition and wellness on gravel. Because
that would be fun.
Is
outstanding.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful. So that would be fun. So can't wait to see you guys.
I might be moving to Portugal. I might just
at least
move there.
Signing up next week. I need to. That would be.
My gosh. Sometimes we're riding for for an hour and you've seen one car and they wait behind you and you just have to say, you can go now.
I got to say that all the stories that I hear of friends who've been over to Europe to ride on bikes, just everyone's a little bit more appreciative and a little bit more empathetic to cyclists on the road, and there's a little bit more respect. Here it seems to be getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
So we might just end up just moving just so we can ride a little bit safer
kidding.
roads on
It's
a regular
really
basis.
cold. I found when we go to France and we ride, I'm particularly scared of the cars rather than the downhill. And the camper van is just so small because they take so much space. But what I've noticed lately is now they're closing some of the coves during the summer. So especially in the Pyrenees, they announced last year, okay, so this weekend, it's a no car, it's only cyclists. We haven't tested out because it was not when we were there, but it's find out if you guys are going to France, before you book your trip, have a look and find out when they're closing the roads and you can
That's
enjoy
a good idea.
Great. Oh, that would be even better.
So other than your incredible gravel thing, is you got anything else coming up? Anything else you want to tell the audience about?
No, just it's so if your audience is interested to even have a chat with me, I've got the discovery call. We can have a chat and discuss if it's something I can help with your goals. But otherwise, the cycling retreat. I work with a lot of athletes at the moment. We're preparing some ladies for Kona. Then there's Nice coming up. The ladies are coming in Nice, and then the men.
Nice, men are in Kona,
And then New Zealand. There's still a lot of people going in New Zealand as well. It's maybe far for you, but I've got a few athletes.
Good.
Do you have athletes going to New Zealand for the World Champs?
No.
No,
there's
right?
a few. There's a couple people local. There's a couple local folks that are going there. I know for sure. I don't have any athletes that are going there yet. So
New Zealand is the half, or
the 70.3 World Champs.
I believe Bella was in Kona and she may have qualified for that.
Yeah, I think both Sierra and Bella are going.
Yeah. We had a mother-daughter folks, Ironman. They both made it to Kona last year, and they were able to compete together. 18-year-old and I forgot how old the mom was.
A little older.
So they both were in Kona, and the daughter is an absolute animal. So I think she qualified for Worlds.
They're both pretty good athletes. So I think they might have qualified for World 70.3s as well. So, and I think there's a couple others here that we've talked to. So we've got a few people going over there. So.
So this has been a fun conversation. Thank you so much for spending time. I think you can have this for hours, right? Because of just the many dimensions of just nutrition and hydration and just people's, like you said, it's both kind of universal and personal all at the same time, right? So
it's a journey that I think everyone, it can be so daunting at the beginning. And I think that's part of our conversation, is to talk through this as much as we possibly can, to just break it down into little easy changes, little small changes. Don't try to change the world all at once. And then it becomes a habit. And once you create the habit, then you can kind of go from there. But you have to put some effort into it. You really have to do a little research on like where your food's coming from. You have to look at what you need to eat. Certainly speaking with a professional like you to help guide them through what it is that's causing issues and what can help and what's not. And then trying not to just do the magic bullet thing. And just make one change and everything's perfect, right? So there has to be a little effort. It has to be a priority in your life. And it certainly has to happen sooner than later, because if you wait until you're 70, like you've waited too long and it's almost too late.
It's never too late. Never too late. I have it's interesting, but I have a few older athletes in Singapore, and they are incredible. They run marathons every year, and they're 75, but they started exercising where they're 55, but they're so good. And it's empowering, because every time I'm like, oh, this is going to be good when we're older, when we start.
There you go.
It gives me hope.
I really think there's no age to start, but you're giving yourself a chance to start as early as possible. And it's a matter of time where, look, like you said, looking at the quality of the food, it feels really daunting, and it doesn't have to be a perfect picture. And I'm really highlighting this because as athletes, we want to do perfection. We want the workout to be green.
Yes.
Mhm.
We want the result to show quickly, but this is like, gardening. This is really important to take time, to be patient, because it's your health. And I think I often say that to people my generation. We are in a place where the population is aging. The healthcare system is already being pulled into a really difficult situation. We don't know how things are going to be in 20, 30 years' time. And I see even the medical system in France is really, really critical. And you hear people waiting for hours when they go to the hospital. And private is not always the option for a lot of people. So really looking after yourself is buying you time. I think we don't have the choice. We need to look after ourselves. We need to invest in our own health in order for us to have this prevention of not having to go to the hospital or rely to the medical system and the healthcare system to help us when we need to. And that's something we need to do now, not in 15 years' time, when we already know that there is not enough doctors and the healthcare system is struggling. And we found out horrible in a very terrible situation during COVID, and we know this. So it is really important to, even if it's because we athletes and performance is important and we're loving our sports and it's all about seeking pleasure, I think it's really important to realize that investing in your own health, it's a priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. And for sure. So thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. Wonderful
Yeah, it's been fun.
conversation. We really appreciate it.
Anytime,
Yeah.
if you have some questions from athletes, I'm happy to come back.
Okay. Absolutely. We'll do that. So everyone, give us your questions and comments. We appreciate all the 5 stars, thumbs up. That gives us a little bit higher up in the algorithm, gets more and more people to get out there and listen to our product. We've got our YouTube channel. You'll see on the video here, subscribe, to make sure that you don't miss any of the new episodes that pop up. And send us your questions and comments. I realize that I'm behind on some Instagram comments that have popped up. So bear with me if I haven't responded to you. There was a few that popped up. I didn't realize they were there. So keep sending in questions and comments, and then maybe we'll have Karelle back on again.
Yeah,
and maybe we'll
absolutely.
just go over there and have a big cycling trip and come back and talk about it, because that would be outstanding as well. Maybe we'll come
There we
and
go.
do the podcast in person
There we go.
while we're doing the thing.
So we're looking for a sponsor to get Tom and I to Portugal. Anybody?
Is there a bike sponsor or something? That
Exactly,
we can get over there?
somebody,
Let's
somebody.
do all of that. So thank you again. Appreciate everyone. Kenny, Karelle, thank you.
Thank you.
And for everybody, we'll catch you on the next show.